Yo, I'm Tro, and I've been playing Surfsy my H-Pala for the majority of Dragonflight. Easy. And it's been kinda crazy seeing the spec slowly work its way into the meta. At the beginning of the expansion, it was borderline impossible to find any guides or content on the spec for PvP. Luckily, I stumbled upon Pally diehards like Respawn and Borngood to learn and take inspiration from. But fast forward to current day, and it was one of the most played specs for NA in the AWC Cup 1. And lots of streamers are multi-classing it now. And I'm here today with this video because the class has just received some pretty big changes. Some changes being flat out nerfs, such as a 75% damage reduction to reckoning procs, and making them twice as infrequent, reducing our wings uptime, and some flat out buffs to our good old fashioned heals, such as a 35% additional increase to Holy Light's healing in PvP. And I think most interestingly, a flat out, well, game-changing change, with melee wings now requiring 5 holy power to activate with a reduced cooldown and a reduced duration. We'll talk about all this and the remaining changes I still haven't mentioned, but briefly, I want to talk about some of the factors that I believe led to these changes and the spec's slow acceptance into the meta. Number 1, H-Pala has been in a really niche place. Being placed on many early tier lists in the C and B tier, people didn't see much potential for this instantly ooming spec. Nor did I think people could have predicted just how much healing per second the melee wings build was capable of pumping out. Number 2, mana. I mentioned this a little bit above in number 1, but this is really no joke. H-Pala is truly doing terrible in 2s right now, where the games tend to go a bit longer. The spec does insane healing for about 2 uses of melee wings, and then you have nothing left in the tank. This leads to the spec feeling like you're racing against the clock, and I think it's probably part of why people had such low expectations for it. Number 3, as we've seen from the first AWC Cup, Dragonflight has brought a new meta, a meta with more pressure than any one defensive cooldown can handle, leading to sometimes 3 or more defensive cooldowns being traded in a single go. This has led to extremely short games in the 3v3 setting, and even more so in solo shuffle because how quickly dampening ramps up. As a result, despite all the C tier predictions for H-Pala this season, we've seen it get serious use so far in the first AWC Cup from top players like Absturge, Seedu, and Brain, among others, as well as seen it perform well in the high-rated brackets of solo shuffle. One of the strongest aspects of H-Pala was our Reckoning Aura talent. Upon your team being crit 50 times, or yourself being crit 25 times, or a combination of both, your next judge would deal 100% increased damage. It was also supposed to always crit, but that was more like usually crit, and it would activate wings for 6 seconds. The heals from this were insane. At low to mid dampening, these procs were basically a lay on hands for all 3 of your teammates. Against certain cleaves, you would find yourself getting 2+ procs a minute. No surprise, according to the dev notes, the team was not happy with how integral these procs had become for the spec, and as a result, pretty heartily dismantled its effectiveness. So with all that broadly spoken, let's get into the specific changes. So there's 2 patches that have come into play today. Number 1 being 10.0.5 general update notes. This is where we are seeing some of Pally's core abilities being modified. And number 2, 10.0.5 class tuning, where we are seeing numbers being shifted. Let's begin with that general update. So first, let's talk about the talent After Image. After every 20 holy power you spend, your next word of glory will splash with 30% effectiveness to a secondary target. Now here's the changes. The first change is they've now made it so you can visually track this with a buff to show how close you are to getting that empowered AoE Word of Glory. I guess it's a nice visual, but they've majorly nerfed the talent as well. The After Image Splash Heal no longer has a chance to trigger Divine Purpose, which makes your next Holy Power ability free, and it also no longer triggers Awakening, which, on spending Holy Power, there's a chance to trigger Wings for 8 seconds. So previously, this talent would lead us to getting additional Wings procs, and now this talent simply just gives us a 30% splash heal every 30 holy power. So in my opinion, I expect to see this talent being redistributed into other places. Next, we got a redesign to Blessing of Winter, the 3rd blessing in the Blessing of Seasons rotation. Previously, when applied to an ally, their attacks would apply a debuff to their target, reducing attack speed by 2% and movement speed by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. It will now instead grant 1% mana every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. For a total of 15% mana regen. If a game were to last 6 minutes and you were using Blessings of Seasons on CD, that would be a total of 30% mana regen. I think in 2s this will be nice for getting a bit more longevity out of your mana pool, but in very fast-paced 3s and solo shuffle, where you're typically tapped on mana, this could work out as a small nerf. We'll have to wait and see. And now, the biggest one of them all, the Avenging Crusader change. This is a big one, and I won't lie, I'm excited to test it out for myself. Previously, the ability has cost 25,000 mana to activate and would last for 25 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Now the ability instead costs 5 holy power, lasts for 12 seconds, and the cooldown has been reduced to a staggering 45 seconds. There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, let's talk about raw uptime, not including wing procs. Previously, at 2-minute CD and a 25-second duration, that was roughly a 20% uptime. Now, at a 45-second CD with a 12-second duration, we're looking at roughly a little over a 26% uptime. That sounds good, but it's not that simple. Because of the talent Awakening, Word of Glory and Light of Dawn have a 15% chance to proc wings for 8 seconds. So now that we have to spend 5 holy power to activate our wings, that's 5 less holy power going towards activating our wing procs. Granted, I think these numbers still pan out to be more uptime with the new wing changes. Additionally, one really exciting change to go along with these new wings is that the talent Divine Purpose, which when used causes holy power abilities to have a 15% chance to cause your next holy power ability to be free, both can be activated by wings, and even better, you can consume one of these procs to cast your wings, so that 5 holy power spell was now free. Finally, I think needing to pool 5 holy power for wings is going to lead to sketchy situations because previously wings has been really nice to be able to activate in a pinch. For example, Trinket, Wings, Judge, all within one global basically. But now, if you end up in trouble without Divine Toll or 5 holy power, you need to somehow survive long enough to pool enough holy power to cast your wings. There's going to be a lot to test with this changed Avenging Crusader because it's going to feel a lot different. So time will tell how these new wings feel and whether it's an improvement or not. Onto some smaller changes, the talent Tower of Radiance, which causes Flash of Light and Holy Light to generate 1 holy power when cast on an ally with your beacon, now additionally causes these spells to have a chance to generate a holy power on targets without a beacon, with that chance going to 100% when the ally is 50% health or less. This is an exciting change for one, because it is a slight increase in holy power generation, but even more so a buff for healing off targets while running single beacon into comps that you believe will be training a single ally. Inflorescent of the Sunwell received a slight consistency buff to holy power generation. Tyr's Deliverance has also received a 25% healing buff, which should bring the talent a little bit more viability, though I'm not sure how much. So that's everything for core changes. Now let's shift over to the tuning changes. Starting out, one that's very exciting to me. Our 45-second CD wall is now a 30% damage reduction instead of its previous 20%. This is really nice for our more sustained survivability and hopefully will help us cope with the lost burst healing from Reckoning Aura. Additionally, most of our good old-fashioned heals have also seen some nice buffs, which should result in some better sustained healing outside of wings. These changes are a 15% increase to Flash of Light in PvP, a 15% increase to Holy Shock healing in PvP, and finally, a 75% increase to Holy Light in PvP, which was previously a 40% increase. With these buffs, we may even see a little more viability of caster-centric pala play as well, but for me as an avid melee wings enjoyer, I'm just happy to have a little bit more pump and survivability outside of my wings. Finally, as we've mentioned before, we see some huge changes to our Reckoning Aura. Previously activated by 50 stacks, it will now activate upon reaching 100 stacks. Additionally, when activated, the Judge will only deal 25% increased damage, down from 100%. So along with a 50% reduced wings uptime from this talent, we're also seeing a pretty large damage/healing nerf as well. The proc Judges are also supposed to have a 100% crit rate, but due to some bugs, the Judges would opt to not crit. So this leads to the only perk of these Reckoning changes. The procs have been fixed to now have a 100% crit chance, so although more infrequent and overall less instant team topping potential, we can more reliably get a feel for how much healing we'll be putting out with these procs. Okay, we made it. So definitely quite a lot of changes. I'm personally excited to get a feel for the new playstyle. Although needing 5 holy power to activate wings, I think getting reliable uptime every 45 seconds will be great for dealing with the current seemingly non-stop burst of the meta. Additionally, having a 30% wall, along with the Trinket main stat nerf and more stamina, we should be able to hold onto our bubbles a little more reliably in early game burst. And finally, having some nice buffs to our good old-fashioned heals should make the spec feel stronger outside of wing phases. So overall, I think we all have a lot of testing to do, but my gut prediction is that the class is going to feel a bit more predictable and reliable outside of our procs. I really hope that you found this video informative, and I look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on the changes. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment your thoughts on the changes below, and if you're keen for consistent arena healing content, please sub. I would appreciate it. Additionally, I post all my content updates on Twitter, stream my gameplay live on Twitch, and you can find me at any of these platforms at Tro. Trohhh or Trohh. I would be Troh, but all the inactive accounts seem to like that name a lot. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.